Project management is a great career path, but it can sometimes be a little bit tricky to break into. So in this video, I'm going to share with you some entry-level positions that you should consider in order to break into project management. Project assistant. Now, you've probably heard when I've said in previous videos when it comes to getting into project management, it's actually easier to get into project management if you're already working in an organization. And this role is the perfect role for that. If you're already working in an organization and you want to break into project management, you want to ask to become an assistant to already an existing project manager within your organization. And what assistants do, they do just that. They assist the project manager, usually with scheduling meetings, taking meeting notes, looking at schedules, any type of administrative type work that can be easily handed off. And it's a great way to have an understanding as to what project management is all about. Now, how do you do this? How do you say to your existing manager, I want to be a project assistant because I want to learn about project management? Well, majority of organizations have a professional development plan that they ask employees to actually do. Like, what is it that you're looking to do? What type of training do you want, et cetera, et cetera. And so what you can do is you can put in that you want to learn more about project management and you would like to get your foot in the door and you would like to potentially be a project assistant on one of those projects. Really great role to get your foot in the door. Before we get into the next one, not only is it important to know what kind of role that you want to get into, you got to build some skill set, and I have that covered for you. I actually have a free webinar that teaches about the 5 most important things you need to know about project management, and guess what? It's free, it's for you, and the link is underneath this video, so definitely go check it out. Planning assistant. Now, this is slightly different than a project assistant. Now, why is that the case? Because if you're a planning assistant, you're usually helping the planner or the scheduler of the project. Now, most companies tend not to have this as a separate role. They kind of roll it into the project management role. But there are a lot of projects, a lot of high profile, very complex, large global projects that actually have a planner or a project scheduler who owns the schedule along with working with the overall project manager. So if you by chance have this in your organization, you may want to ask to be a planning assistant. Now, what do? They really focus on the plan. So you really have to have a good idea of some sort of Gantt-like software. A lot of organizations use Microsoft Project. You need to have an understanding of to dependencies. And really, you're going to be reaching out, ensuring that those dependencies are being met and followed, and really assisting that scheduler of the project to make sure that everything is going according to the schedule. Entry-level risk analyst. Now you're going, what, Adriana, that has nothing to do with projects. Well, it actually has a lot to do with projects, because projects, particularly if you do really good project management, we talk about risk all the time. Now, the role itself is not necessarily a direct correlation to a project team. However, you need to understand how projects start. And they usually start with business analysts. They usually start with senior management and strategies. And those business analysts and those risk analysts actually look at the strategy, the potential projects. They a lot of times put the justification forward as to whether or not the company should do the project or not. Now, why is this a really good role to get into at a junior level? Because you're going to see how projects are built. You're going to see the logic behind them. And because you're so closely tied to that, you can easily step into the project management world from that role. Now, again, take note, you need to have some education as well about project management, because just because you know everything about risk doesn't necessarily mean you're going to know everything about project management. But don't forget, I have you covered because I have that free webinar. PMO assistant. PMO is Project Management Office. Now, again, not every organization has a project management office, because a project management office is a central location within the organization that all projects funnel through. And there's usually a director at the head of this office who is ensuring that all the projects have the right resourcing, the right budgets, everything needed to be successful, and that it's linked back to strategy. So if you have a project office, you may want to consider talking to the head of that department and see how you can get involved as a PMO assistant. Now, that PMO assistant will be very similar to a project assistant, but you're working on a more grander scale, kind of looking at programs because you're looking at multiple projects. So it's a nice way, again, to get your foot in the door from a different angle, not from a single project perspective as a project assistant would be, but from an overarching strategy perspective of all the projects happening in your organization. Definitely a cool role if you have a PMO office. Project coordinator. This is the closest role as a junior entry-level position you're going to get to actually being a project manager, because a project coordinator basically does everything that a project manager does, but at a much smaller scale. So project coordinators usually get shorter timeline projects, usually get projects that can be completed within a couple of weeks or a couple of months. They usually have a much smaller team. You tend to be doing all of the work, so you don't have a scheduler, you don't have a planner, you don't have that additional support because you don't have such a large project, but it's a fantastic way to get your foot in the door because you still have to do planning, you still have to do your timeline, you still have to review budget. Well, sometimes maybe not, because sometimes it's a very small project and budgets aren't necessarily being monitored as closely because everything's internal. But anyway, that's neither here nor there, but it's a fantastic way to really get a real good idea and picture as to what project management is all about. And the more projects you do as a project coordinator, the more opportunity you're going to have and experience in order to become a project manager and really tackle those larger scale projects. Junior engineer or technician. What? Adriana, we're talking about project management. Whoa, 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 whoa. I've said many times in past videos, there are some professional roles that fall very naturally into project management. And anything that's technical, like an engineer or a technician, is a perfect example of that. Because a lot of the work that's done is usually project oriented. And remember what a project is by definition. It has a start and a finish with a deliverable at the end. And this is what these roles do. Now, if you're just at entry level in these roles, you're probably executing on a task, not necessarily managing a project. But if you understand that your role can move into project management, then you can easily look at your role and what you're doing from a project perspective, which is what I highly recommend, and really understand how things are moving forward from a project perspective. And you can also help the project manager as well. So take note, that is, those roles or those job positions naturally build in project management. So if you're doing any of those, you know projects for sure, for sure, for sure. Now, what's really cool is if you're thinking, seriously, Adriana, you really can get into project management that way? Yeah, and I'm gonna tell you a little story. I have a good friend of mine who's an electrician. I don't think anybody would think, oh yeah, an electrician, they're gonna be, into project management. Well, on the residential side, probably not if you're just a one-person show going into people's homes to fix the electrical needs that they have. But if you do it on the commercial side, you do these large scale construction builds, you can easily rise up that ladder of becoming a project manager and even overseeing mega construction builds. And that's what my friend who's an electrician did. He actually oversees now a crew of 200 electricians on construction projects, ensuring that everything is getting done. So even though his role is not officially called project manager, basically that's really what he's doing. He's in charge of all the electricians' activities, and they all report underneath him, and they all have tasks associated with it. So it's really cool. So open your eyes to the possibility that you may already be doing project management. Now that you have an idea of a few entry-level roles that you could potentially get into to get your foot in the door with project management, don't forget to save your seat on my free webinar. That link is underneath the video. It truly is going to help you to give some additional insight. Definitely check it out. Watch this video next. I'm going to break down all the potential aspects of project management, questions you may have from a career perspective. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel. It tells YouTube we're doing a good job. And on that note, see you at the next video.